Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I am going to be making a batch of lilac soap, and I purchased some lilac oil, and when I first did this, the lilac oil responded very badly in the soap. Hopefully I'm going to recreate what happened, but we'll go ahead and get started. Sometimes what happens is some oils like to react with the lye. So I'm going to go ahead and add my water into a separate container and go ahead and put my lye, add my lye to my water, and let that get dissolving. So what ended up happening was the first time I tried this, my soap ended up separating. After I had mixed everything together and it looked beautiful, added my fragrance oil, and then it just went all wonky. But sometimes you can save the soap. I ended up saving mine. Hopefully with this video you can see what I was talking about. So I'm hoping it goes the same way. I mean, I really don't want it to, but for teaching purposes, why not? And it does smell really, really nice. So I've got my coconut oil here. My lye water is cooling off. It's still fairly hot. I do like to use a heat transfer method where my coconut oil is rather solid at room temperature, but I've already preheated this a while ago. Sometimes the heat can make soap accelerate and do some funny stuff. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add my lye water to my coconut oil. And I like to pour it over my spatula, that way that lye water does not splash. So everything is starting out the same as what it's supposed to. Going to go ahead and add my milk. I like to split my water in my recipe because that way you only need enough water to melt your lye, so equal weights of water and lye will dissolve your lye properly. If you don't have enough water to melt your lye, your soap can end up being, or your water will end up being lye saturated, and your lye won't dissolve, and then your finished soap will have lye chunks in it, and that's not safe. So you only need just enough water to dissolve your lye, and extra water can help slow down your trace and all that good stuff. So just added my milk to my recipe, or to my batch. Gonna go ahead and burp my blender so that way I get rid of any air bubbles, which if this accelerates with the fragrance oil, it won't really matter. I like to mix to emulsion, not really to a full trace, that way it stays really light and kind of soupy in its texture. And but everything is incorporated well. It's not going to separate. At least that is the idea. I'm going to bring you in here a little closer so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's still very thin. It's not to a trace, but it's still very smooth at the top of my spatula there. That's what you want, especially when you're working with an olive oil, or a coconut oil soap. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of colorant, mixed up my mica, a little bit of oil, make it a pretty color, make it a lilac purple. At least that is the intended plan. Alright, so this is where I'm going to go ahead and add my lilac fragrance oil, and just for kicks and giggles we're going to see what happens. So it's a smooth consistency that we want. Go ahead and add that in there. Set that aside. I'm just going to start stirring it. So it's starting to get some lumpy chunks to it. It smells good. And this is where it's starting to try and separate. So it's starting to get kind of lumpy looking, kind of grainy. That is also what happens sometimes with some oils. I'm just going to keep stirring it by hand. And the color has changed from purple to brown, which is really weird. And here we go. Here's that separation. So it's not really soap. It's more at this point like applesauce. I don't know if that color is going to come back or not. Yeah, so I've got liquid, and then I've got, yeah, applesauce. So this, my batch, kind of seized. Oh man. This was my dilemma. So now I've got, yeah, a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and try and save this. And this is why it won't really matter. Since this is already so thick, I've got to reblend this to try and incorporate everything back together and make everything stick. So it's not going to matter if it gets any bubbles in it at this point. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some of my lavender essential oil because I love the smell of lilac and lavender together. It's so wonderful. But oh man. So I've got chunks of soap and oil. So let's go ahead and blend this back together again. And it's going to make a very thick trace. So, still applesauce-y. Now it's more like mashed potatoes. This is what you would expect in like a hot process soap. But I'm just trying to get everything to adhere back. It's not going to matter what color it's eventually going to be. Because I'm going to be keeping this. So there, thinned it back out a little bit. So sometimes if your soap does not turn out to be what you expect or hope it's going to be, try again because you might be able to save it anyway. And now it's not really brown anymore, it's a tan color. And I think that might be incorporated well enough. Making sure I don't see any loose oil hanging around anywhere because I want to make sure this whole thing becomes saponified. Otherwise, I'm going to end out with pieces of my soap being lye heavy and then have oil, and you don't want that. You want to have all your lye water mixed in with all of your oils. Okay, I'm good with that. I know this looks so bad. But you can imagine my experience when this happened to me the first time and I didn't know if I could save it. That was a mess. So I don't like having to cut my soap, but because this accelerates, and some fragrance oils will do that, sometimes essential oils can do that too. So you just kind of want to work with it the best you can. So it's too thick to try and pour into individual molds, and I really prefer using them, especially with a coconut oil soap, because sometimes if I don't get back to it in time, I'll end out with a soap brick instead of a soap bar, and I never cut my soaps very well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just let this sit. I can't really decorate the tops any. I might throw some lavender flowers on top of it, I don't know. Decorating the tops is kind of not an option. It's just, yeah, so you get what you get. And I'll be back later on for a unmolding and a cut a little bit later. So we'll be back. Hello everyone and welcome back. So let's go ahead and pull this soap out of the mold. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. It got really hot. So at this point it should be done with its saponification process, which saponification just means that the lye and the oils have fully fused together, and the lye has vanished at this point. I've already tested a small little pieces of it that have been on the side there, and it is already skin safe, but it's still relatively soft, so it's still going to need to cure to let all the water that was used to make this bar come back out of it. So that is the difference between cure time and saponification, is that the saponification has to do with the lye, making sure that the pH is at the right level so it's skin safe, and the cure time just allows the soap to get more solid and allowing all the water to evaporate back out of the soap. And I guess all the phases that the soap went through was it liked to rise first, and that's what gave it that chunky look when it first started to separate out. And then usually you can blend it and the ricing will go away and everything will stick back together. And sometimes, like in this case, it just accelerated and then seized, so then I had soap and oil. And then the very last stage was that I had the separation where I had just the oil and the soap. So here we go. This is just going to go ahead and cure, and I hope that helps you guys understand that sometimes even if your soap behaves badly, you can save it and it will turn out safe to use for you anyway. And this mold, I actually found this at the dollar store, so it's just a plastic container, storage container. It just worked great in a pinch, especially when you have stuff like this going on. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and you can come back for more tips and tricks later on. Bye now.